I never wanted to do drag. Other people wanted me to do drag.
Hello, I am Kay Anderson, and you are listening to Lost Spaces, the podcast that mourns the death of queer nightlife. Every episode, I talk to a different person about a venue from their past, the memories they created there, and the people that they used to know. Now, one of the very big perks of doing this show is that I get to reach out to people that I admire with the flimsy excuse that I want to interview them for the podcast, and then just get the opportunity to talk one-on-one with them for a few hours. And this week's guest is one such example of this. Regina Gently, who you may also know as her alter ego Gentleman Reg, is a singer, songwriter, and drag performer from Canada, who has worked alongside Broken Social Scene, The Hidden Cameras, and Owen Pallett, to name a few. And as Reg, she even appeared in John Cameron Mitchell's film Shortbus. And this is a bit of a record for Lost Spaces, as this is going to be the third time that we have featured the Beaver, a dive bar set up by the visionary Will Munro in Toronto's West End that closed in 2020. In the late noughties, Reg was working at the bar, and it's where he first fell in love with drag, which is where Regina comes into the picture. We talk all about getting into drag relatively late in life, transitioning from indie rock to dance music, and I continue my age-old tradition of discussing Celine Dion with Canadian guests.
I was just doing this job to to pay my rent so I could keep making music. So it really was, it wasn't my passion. I was like, oh, this is here. I'll just do this. It was a really weird time for me in Toronto because I was doing so much. That was the time that I was on the cover of the local free paper that we have called Now, and an Extra magazine, and that was when I was getting most of my press as well. So then to also be waitering in the hippest, queerest bar that had just come on the scene, there was just a lot of confused customers or people who had seen me perform, and so that added this weird element where I'm just trying to serve and remember their order, and then they want to talk about the Canadian music industry and how devastating it is. Yeah.
Was there anything there about your ego, or was it just about the way they interacted with you?
No, for sure. It was hard for my ego as well.
Yeah. Imagine on this one hand, there's things are blowing up. This is really exciting. And then on the other, it's not covering the rent.
Yes, exactly. I mean, I think that would be true for any artist. I mean, there's that sort of cater waiter. I mean, I feel like there have been entire shows. I feel like there was a whole sitcom just based around waiters. I can't remember the name of it, but
was it Waiters?
Maybe. And
it is such a weird thing, isn't it? That especially with the music industry and maybe other entertainment fields, because the public is so exposed to it, or a facet of it, they all think that if you're that it's easy to make it sustainable, and that you're a failure if you haven't, and they don't really understand necessarily what the realities are, and so you're kind of caught in this weird position of do I explain to them how fucked up the industry is, or do I just kind of let them have that weird view of me being a kind of failure? And all the internalization of that as well.
Yes.
Yay, music.
Yeah.
Yay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it makes, it just added a whole other element to, what I was trying to do, which was just give them their order. And,
But did it increase tips? Was there a correlation between people who recognized you and the amount you got tipped?
I think it did, actually. Yeah, it's funny you said that, because I think there was like a little bit of, some people felt sorry for me. This is also not, this is like a small percentage of people. Obviously, it was not that well known, but I mean, Toronto is not really that big. And then the queer scene in Toronto is like not really that big. And then the alternative queer scene in Toronto is, so yeah. So there were, there were fair people that I think tipped me a little bit more than I deserved for the service skills I was providing. But
what are you like when people recognize you? Are you like, hey, yeah, let's talk? Or are you like, this is really jarring and weird. Don't talk to me, please. Or somewhere in between?
Now I'm just like, I'm thankful that people recognize me now at this age. I mean, back then, yeah, I was good with it. It was different. I mean, do you mean just like outside of?
Yeah, you just in any context. Yeah.
Yeah. That was much more natural, because I was like, well, thank God you recognize me. I'm like, I'm doing all this stuff. And of course, my look as a boy, which you can see, your podcast listeners, I guess, can't, but I have this very white look, like on the verge of albino sort of thing. So that also, I just got known for,
is that what
like,
your Grindr profile says?
My hair. Yeah, exactly. For those seeking albino, pasty skin.
On the verge.
Yeah. But I actually used to do a lot of art. Like I used to get photographed for people's art projects and stuff, because of when they wanted like someone who looked like an albino, I would get called. And I probably did that 5 or 6 times. And then that's also why I'm in the movie Shortbus, the John Cameron Mitchell film, playing an albino. So it's not, this is not just in my head. It was like a real thing that I was like known for, getting jobs for. And then my point is, it's just, if I'm in a crowd, like my freaking hair it's like.
Yes. Yeah. Very distinctive.
Yeah. It's like a beacon of blondness.
I have this weird thing. If people recognize me and approach me and want to talk to me, I'm always just like, I'm going to be such a letdown.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I don't know what to say, because whatever I say is going to be disappointing.
Yes. Well, I have been disappointed by meeting people I've loved. I will admit.
Tell me who.
Well, mostly music people that I probably shouldn't.
Well, I mean, who's going to
although
know?
It's not like they're listening.
Yeah. Who is it?
Well, yeah. So back in the 90s, early 2000s, I was really into like the sort of grunge era, like Liz Phair, Hole, Juliana, Hatfield, like all of that kind of stuff. And I did meet Juliana. I had seen her like probably 10 times live. And
were you always up the front being a fanboy?
I don't think I was, actually, because I was like, I was a fanboy, but I wasn't like the screaming kind of like jumping in the front row. But yeah, I did meet. So I had like a chance to open for her, and it fell through. And I had a chance to interview her once for a paper when I was writing for like student newspapers and stuff. And so through that, I was like, oh, I bet I can meet her like at the show, because I interviewed her. And it just was the most absurd situation where I went to the show. I was living in a different city at that time, so we drove to the show with my friend. I, of course, was on the guest list because I had interviewed her. And then my friend couldn't get into the bar. They wouldn't accept her ID for some reason. Like, she was totally of age. She had a driver's license, which is like our main ID here. And they wouldn't let her in. So we were just like...
So she didn't have a driver's license with her?
No, she did.
Oh, okay.
She had it. They just thought it was fake for some reason.
Oh,
it was
okay.
like this
so
weird I don't know, it was worn, it had been worn out. And anyways, it like this whole saga ensued. We're like totally defeated. We go to leave, and then Juliana is like walking towards the venue, like with, you know, a handler or manager or whatever. And, you know, so admittedly, I was like pissed at this point. So I kind of freaked out and I was like, oh my God, Juliana, you have to help us. You know, and just went on this diatribe of like, I interviewed you and I'm here with my friend and we can't get into the show. And like, we drove an hour to get here. And she's just very shy. So, I mean, this story, it's like, it's almost not, it's like her fault, but really she just sort of like, it was like a snail going back into its shell. And she just was like, I'm sorry, I don't know what I can do. And just like walked into the venue. And we were both just so, you know, disappointed and distraught by that. But, you know, I was probably, I probably scared her.
Somewhat unreasonable in your request. But see, that's the thing. Like,
Yeah.
like, what could she have done other than let you down in that instance? Like, there's so much pressure on her.
Exactly. And like, as if, you know, I mean, she doesn't know who we are. Yeah, maybe
you spoke to me once for half an hour. You should be my best friend.
Yeah. And yeah, you know, as if a band is going to fight that fight for the, you know, this friend who can't get in. Anyways.
Okay, so that was an aside. What were we talking about? People recognizing you, living up to their expectations.
Well, we talked about me waiter, like, you know, working at the Beaver as a waiter.
How often did people hit on you?
Oh, as a waiter? I don't think people would hit on me as a waiter.
Oh, that's boring.
Yeah, I know. People would hit on me in drag, for sure. People would hit on Regina. But as a waiter, no, I don't think so.
How do you feel about being hit on as Regina?
Well, it was fascinating to me because, I mean, she looks nothing like me. So it was like a whole different kind of person that was hitting on me. Like straight men would kind of like give me eyes and look at me in a way that like I never would get looked at, right? So yeah, so that was kind of a fascinating revelation. Like, oh, some people find, you know, drag queens, you know, attractive. And then I realized that it's actually a thing, right? Like I didn't know that that was like a thing that drag queens deal with, is like, you know, men hitting on them, or this specific kind of man hitting on them. But, you know, I got into it. Well, you know, depends who it is, as with anything. But, you know, the odd guy, I was like, okay, you're handsome.
You're handsome, and then what? And then what? Fill in the blanks for me.
And then, you know, sure, buy me some drinks. We can, like, let's make out, you know, who knows? All manner of things. But yeah, it's like, you know, I'm also a fantasy, right? It's like, it's not, I don't think anything like that could lead to a relationship or
yeah, that's the weird thing, isn't it? Because you've got this different like outer shell, but the core is the same. And like being aware of the fact that they're not interested in the inside bit. Oh God. I mean, they're interested in some of the inside bits, but, you know, they're not interested in who you are. Like,
right.
That's kind of, yeah, that's like, yeah, as long as you kind of keep it in perspective and kind of understand that that's the game you're playing.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, that could fuck with your brain quite easily, I think.
I'm sure. I think because I always kept it as, maybe because of my like age, I wasn't like a 19-year-old, you know, drag queen being like swept off my feet. It was more just like, oh,
free drinks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, I'll have another. Yes, I'll have a double, actually. You know, I could play, you know, with them as much as they could play with me, sort of thing. So.
Yeah. It's extending the performance. You are a performer. Yes.
Yes, exactly.
So let's talk about your first time in drag. What, like, so whenabouts was this?
Well, it's been 10 years, actually. Is it 10 years? God. I think it was 2011 was my first time in drag.
And so what was the inspiration? Like what made you want to try it?
Well, that's the crazy thing. I mean, so I'm old. I'm very old. So I'm 45.
Okay,
So
hang
the
on.
first time I did drag.
Like, let's just go back. That's not very old.
Okay. It's not. But my point was when I first did drag, I was 35, which
that's old.
is kind of old. Yeah, exactly. You know, considering, you know, most people are like in their early 20s or teens.
Do we think that because of the current climate, or has it always been the case that people got into drag very young?
I think it's always been the case.
Okay.
I think it's younger for sure now, like even younger. But yeah, I feel like it was always like a youth thing, or yeah.
It's usually a calling.
Well, that's what made it so unusual is, like, to answer your other question, is I never wanted to do drag. Mm-hmm. Other people wanted me to do drag.
What do you mean? Like,
yeah. Well, Will Munro, like, who, you know, started the Beaver, he always thought I should do drag because I was a singer. And he just thought, like, you know, you'll do drag, but you'll sing live. And there, you know, there have never been that many drag queens doing that. So he just thought, and that's the kind of person he was, right? Like, he was like the visionary. And I just thought at the time when, you know, 2008, 9, like, I was like full indie rock singer-songwriter mode. And I was like, well, why would I do that? Like, I'm doing this. I just didn't see it for me. Even though I would go to those parties and have a great time and knew that scene, I just didn't see it for me.
And there's kind of a snobbery, isn't there? Like, in the, like, I'm a serious... Sorry, this is not like me saying you were a total snob, but there's like in that scene of like, I'm a serious singer-songwriter, I'm like, you know, all about the music. It's very, very easy to denigrate and look down your nose at drag as an art form and anyone who makes music as a drag artist.
For sure, absolutely. Yeah. And especially back then, I mean, now it's so mainstream and, you know, you have these crazy successful drag performers, but back then, even 10, 12 years, I mean, it wasn't at all like that. You know, it was great and you still had great performers, but, you know, not really many people were like, oh, I'm going to get into drag because there's tons of money in that, you know, in that art form. It wasn't really like that. It was like, you just kind of did it because you were crazy or it's what you wanted to do, or, but it wasn't really like a career choice back then. I mean, I don't know, certainly wasn't for me or in my world. And so, but then and then there was, Will was one, and then there was, you know, other people saying the same thing. And then eventually Hot Nuts just asked me to perform at their party. And I said yes. And they said, you have to do it in drag. And I said, okay. And then I had about a month from when they asked me to the show to come up with a look and an act. And
how much did you flip-flop in that month?
I committed. I was never going to like back out.
Oh, okay. So you were never like, should I be doing this? What am I doing?
No. I was like, oh, what am I going to do? Like, if I'm going to do this, it has to be good, you know?
So what was your approach then to creating the character? Well, do you call her a character, or is she you?
Yeah, it's a bit of a persona. It's a bit of just me. It's, for a long time, I was referring it to like real girl drag because it's less sort of camp influenced and more sort of influenced from my musical influences, right? Like Debbie Harry and Cyndi Lauper, like Annie Lennox. Like that kind of stuff is what influences my drag more than anything else. I've lost my train of thought though.
First, this month. So you said,
in the
I'm
month.
committed, I'm doing this. And then like, what was the process of putting it all together?
Yeah. And so this woman, Margot Keith, who is still a good friend today, she was a biological female who did female drag, which is more and more common now, but at the time it wasn't. And she was a makeup artist as well. And so she did a lot of people's makeup. So so the Hot Nuts people were like, okay, you're going to do this thing. We're going to call you Regina the Gentle Lady, because my old band was called Gentleman Reg.
Do you know what? I am so stupid. I only just got that. I only just made that connection.
Oh, yeah?
I was going to be like, so
Okay.
why is it Gently? But yeah, you've just answered that. Okay,
Right.
sorry. That's my stupidity. Carry on.
Well, you and everyone else. I thought it was obvious, but apparently not.
Oh, but hang on, sorry. So you didn't even come up with your own name. You just got it foisted upon you.
Yeah, I did.
Oh, that's sad.
I know. Well, I have since changed it to Regina Gently. But yes, originally it was the Gentle Lady. So for many years it was Regina the Gentle Lady. And then Margot came up with my look. So she styled me and did my makeup. And because I didn't know, like I said, I was 35. I didn't know anything about makeup at that time. I didn't know.
Why would you? Yeah.
What to do. Yeah. So I just focused on the performance and the songs I was going to do and being able to sing live. And, I focused on that element, which is what I knew. And then got these other people to sort of focus on the rest. And then after the performance, it was clear that I had sort of hit, I had struck, a nerve in myself, a nerve in like everyone else who knew me. And from there, I just kept doing it. And then I was doing both. So there was like a big period where I was still doing indie rock, singer-songwriter. And then I started making dance music under another name, Lightfires. And I was doing Lightfires as this drag persona, Regina, which is just too many layers for people, and it never caught on.
So, like this initial period of performance, were you doing Gentleman Reg songs, or were you doing other covers or originals?
Well, the very first performance as Regina, I did a Bjork song a cappella, and then I did "Dancing on My Own" by Robin.
Because of course.
And I sang live. And which is hard to believe that how old that song is, but that song, when I did it, it had just come out like that week. So it was like fresh, people were seeing this new Robin.
Is this like some kind of humble brag of like, I was there at the beginning?
Well, I don't know. I just think it's when I say, if I didn't tell you that it was 10 years ago and I said I did Dancing on My Own, you would probably not. I don't know. I don't feel like people realize how long that song has been out.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry
whatever.
to pick on you. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it's fine. But, it just fit in with, I really had to, that was the whole thing, right? I wanted to sing live, but I also didn't want to do like a Gaga song or something that you would see on Church Street. And at that time, you certainly wouldn't have seen Robin even. I mean, you would now, but then I was like, ooh, Bjork, that makes sense. And like Robin, that makes sense. So it was just like all of those things. And yeah, the first few things I did covers. And then I quickly, because I already had this band, Lightfires, like I was already making this dance music. And then I just thought, ooh, Regina will front Lightfires. And then from then on, I just started doing those songs. Yeah. So I already had all this dance music that was just,
waiting there for
you. It was just this weird lineup of things.
But so because you had this support and this help in terms of like developing the aesthetic and doing the makeup, does that mean you didn't have like a long period of being busted? Like that is every drag queen's like rite of passage?
No, I was pretty busted. Yeah, because the first year I had like one wig. You know what I mean? And I had, because I had nothing.
Like with wigs, you're not supposed to wash them, are you? Like, how do you clean them?
You can wash them.
Oh, okay.
I mean, for sure, if they're real hair, you can wash them. But even synthetic, if it's not a crazy cheap one, no, you wash them. But you're supposed to, well, what I've been told is you're supposed to condition them. Like you put conditioner in them and it actually helps them. But yeah, no, this, I had this one outfit and this one wig for like my first bunch of performances. And it took quite some time for me to realize, like, you know, how to shop. Like, I just didn't know how to
So, because
look feminine.
was that like a cardinal sin on the scene, or were people forgiving of it? The fact that you wore the same thing over and over?
No, people were forgiving for sure. Because, like, remember, I was singing live and then I was doing original music too. So that was kind of my, you know,
your pass.
I was like, well, you're not getting the greatest outfit or makeup, but
wait till I sing.
There's no other queens in Toronto writing their own goddamn music. So
and so what was that like, that journey of figuring out all the stuff like shopping and like tucking and stuff? Did you just kind of embrace that, or were you like, oh, I'm a bit embarrassed because of my...
A little bit of both. Yeah, I sort of embraced it because I had to. I had a lot of support back then. So Margot, but then also David Haw, this other makeup artist, and people were really wanted to help me back then. So it was very thankful in terms of that. Like, people just started giving me wigs or giving me like, oh, I have this old thing, you know, and then I just, started collecting stuff very slowly and figuring it out. And, you know, and then eventually, like maybe 5 years later, I actually went to makeup school. I just, because I thought like, oh, maybe I could do that as a job, and I'll also learn a lot more about makeup. And so, so my skills got up. And, but even now, you know, I'm not a look queen, let's say, you know, I'm not known for my, you know, makeup looks. It's certainly improved from day one, but again, that's never been, you know, I'm not trying to be famous on Instagram, you know?
Yeah.
Even though I'd like some of those sponsorships,
those coins,
I guess.
Yeah.
But
so then let's go back to that first performance. Like, after doing it, you got a good reception, but what were your thoughts before going on? What were your thoughts when you were on stage? Like, how did that all feel?
I mean, it was, the thing with the Beaver is it was never had good sound, and it was certainly not meant for live singing or, you know, music. So it wasn't like a venue with a stage, and, you know, we just sort of turned the upper floor into the stage, but the speakers were pointing towards the stage, which is like, what they're supposed to be going the other way towards the audience, which, you know, that fucks up the microphone but then there would be a bit of a performance in the round vibe if it was really packed. There were actually, during my thing, there were people like all behind me in the back hallway. Like, it was like a pretty crazy packed party. So yeah, I was thinking about, okay, first time walking in high heels. They were way too small. My feet were killing. Like, can I, you know, am I going to fall? I was thinking about, how do I not feedback with this mic when I'm singing? Like, I did the Bjork song a cappella because I thought, like, ooh, it'll be really dramatic. It will just be like this a cappella thing, and then I'll bust into dancing on my own. And so that's the kind of stuff I was thinking of, really. And then just you know, all these people that had known me for 10 years, like in indie rock, seeing me, you know, as this female persona, it was just, it was just like a really fun moment.
And we talked about like overcoming some of that snobbery that comes from being part of a different scene. Was that something that was ongoing, or like when you were in it, were you just like, yeah, okay, this is what I'm doing? Or was there any kind of residual concerns or worries about your peers in the music scene looking down on what you were doing?
Yes and no. It was more, the thing that really got me is that people were just so confused. So people couldn't get that I, you know, was like still being a singer-songwriter, but then I also had started this female persona. And so like, so that, and, you know, like you said, like my singer-songwriter was called Gentleman Reg, and then this is Regina, the gentle lady. So like the names are connected. My name is Reg as a boy. So it's like it's very connected via the name and stuff, but people still couldn't figure out like, oh, that you're still doing that. And then this is something else. And yeah, I mean, for sure the indie rock people were like, oh, what are you doing? You're dressing as a woman and the style, like I said, I sort of had this real girl drag style. So it was like sort of, you know, it wasn't Priscilla Queen of the Desert drag. It was like me as
understated,
like Joan Jett, sort of, just with like jeans, you know, and like a
jeans.
top.
Oh, no, like, I don't know much about drag, but I know that's not allowed, surely.
I know. Well, you should see Regina in some jean shorts. She can rock some jean shorts.
Thing, isn't it? Yeah. Okay. All right. Carry on.
Yeah, her legs. You know, her legs have done her well. Yeah. So that was the biggest hurdle. Really, was figuring out, or other people figuring out what I'm doing. But I didn't really care. Like, I didn't think like, oh, people aren't going to take this seriously. Or at the end of the day, it was kind of like a different crew that was into one, and then a different crew that was into the other. And some crossover, of course, but, you know, just because somebody liked me as a singer-songwriter, they're not necessarily going to like me as a woman writing dance music, right?
But there is also this kind of entitlement that a lot of fans have. And like, I just wonder if that played on your mind at all, if you were thinking about those people who feel as though you shouldn't change because of who you're presented in as your art.
Right.
And like not wanting to disappoint them,
right,
even though they shouldn't be entitled in the first place. And that whole spiral.
Yeah. No, I didn't think about that. I mean, to be fair, like, I don't think either of my personas got well known enough to sort of warrant that kind of like feeling of betrayal in a fan. You know what I mean? And totally honest, like, so many people don't even know. You know, like, I get messages all the time on my Gentleman Reg socials, like, you know, like, what are you up to these days? Or like, do you still make music? You know, like, so there's like a whole sector of people that like have no idea that I even do drag.
And so then, like, so coming to the scene, being this new old queen. Oh, I shouldn't have said that. Sorry. You know where I'm going, right?
Uh-huh.
Like, what was that like in Toronto? Especially because at this point, like, Drag Race hadn't like exploded, and it was a thing, but it wasn't like a phenomenon. What was it like, kind of negotiating the scene?
Yeah, no, Drag Race season 1 had just aired. Like, that's when I started, and you know, had nothing to do with Drag Race. But yeah, no. And that season. Yeah, like you said, like, it was, some people watched it, but it was not like anything like it is now. No, it was great. I mean, it took a long time for me to go to Church Street, which is our like gay village. So for the longest time, yeah, I just performed at the Beaver. I performed at the Hen House, which was a more lesbian themed West End gay bar. Some of the boutique hotels, like the Gladstone, was doing queer nights in the West End. Yeah, like, it sort of started, there were just things doing queer nights. And then because I had this original dance music, and I sort of had my music base, like, doing indie rock, I started getting shows. So I started opening for like Peaches, Big Frida, Hercules and the Love Affair, queer dance artists who would come to town. Like, I got a lot of opening gigs, Ostra, Diamond Rings. Like, it was really good for a period. I did some new shows in New York. I toured in Europe a bit. So it was a kind of exciting time, like the first few years, even though my drag was like not fancy by any means.
Was getting there.
I sort of like went into the world of electronic, like, queer artists more than drag. Yeah, and then at a certain point I was like, oh, I want to explore the village, and I would do some shows over there, but
Okay. That was going to be my follow-up question. Like, did you have a certain snobbery about the village?
Well, in the sense that I didn't really hang out there, you know, and no one knew me there. And when I did perform there, I really had to invite friends to come, like, to support me. Um, the odd person would like be like, "Oh my God, thank you for singing live," and then most of the bar would just be like, "What's happening?
What's going on?"
Yeah, so I stopped that quite quickly. But then also around that time, I started DJing as Regina. So I kind of got into the village more as a DJ, like in drag. But I don't perform there at all, really. And it's fine because it's not what they want.
Well, that's a lot of effort to spin records, isn't it? Putting on like a whole bunch of makeup and a dress or jean shorts.
It certainly is. Yes, it's insane, and I don't recommend anyone ever do it.
How did you get better at walking in the shoes?
Well, that first pair of heels, they were just too damn small. They were too tight. They were plastic, and they were just too small. Like my feet hurt within 5 minutes of having them on. So yeah, then you learn like, you just have to buy bigger shoes. An open toe is nice. And I don't know. I just really took to it. And then my persona was pretty like, at least initially, the music was more sort of electro based, and Regina was pretty intense. And I would like jump on things. Like I was sort of known for like, I would climb on the bar, and I would dance on the bar, and if there was anything I could grab onto, I would climb on it, and I would stand on stools, and I would like in high heels. And then that sort of became like, oh my God, like, is she going to fall? Like,
and so the question is, did you ever fall?
Did I ever fall? Not from a stool. You know what? The most dramatic thing, actually, and this was at the Beaver, was I used to climb on the bar, like I said. And this one performance, the Beaver had installed ceiling fans. And they were never there when I worked there. And suddenly there were ceiling fans. And I jumped up on the bar and I stood up. And I got hit in the head with a spinning ceiling fan. And I kid you not, like I think my wig, because it had long bangs, like kind of saved my head because...
from decapitation.
yeah, exactly. But that was like, I think has to be the most dramatic thing because like everyone was like freaking out. Like, because it was, you're just like, oh my God, is that top of my head going to be sliced off?
But so you stood up and it hit you, and then like, so you didn't fall back or anything. It just like hit you.
I didn't fall. Yeah. I mean, I guess it wasn't the strongest, it wasn't a high powered,
no, come on. You can
machinery.
Some of the details. It's fine.
It did. It did cut my head. I was like, it was like, a trickle of blood was streaming down the forward of my head. So I was cut. There was an injury, but I didn't fall back.
Adds to your kudos as an act, though, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, it was pretty... I mean, I wish someone caught that on video, but... yeah, I can't think of a fall, though, which is crazy. Knock on wood, I guess, because I also was kind of got known for doing high kicks. Like, I wasn't a dancer. Like, I can't do the splits or death drops, but I can do high kicks. And so that sort of became my like thing. And then doing them in high heels.
You did that in the middle of an a cappella Bjork number then?
No, that didn't come. That didn't come till later. That wasn't performance number one. That was a little bit later. I discovered I could high kick in a high heel.
But did you do that thing that like that the queens on Drag Race do, where it's just like, this has no place in this song, but I want to show off the fact that I can do it? Or were you a bit more like understated in your decision making?
Well, I was doing my own music, right? So it was sort of like I'm just doing my thing in my music. It's not like I would never do like a Celine Dion ballad. You know what I mean?
Okay, wait, I just have to like stop you there. Every single person I speak to from Canada brings up Celine Dion.
Oh,
What
really?
is it? What is about what is it?
Yeah. I mean, do you guys know her in the UK?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, of
Okay.
course.
Okay.
But is she like a subject at school or like what is it?
Yeah. Yeah, university course. She's just this crazy Quebecois phenomenon, you know. She's French, she's from Quebec. She's been around from the 80s. She dated her manager who was so much older. Like it's like a crazy thing. And now she's like a fashion icon. Like, I don't know, there's just so much to her. And she has this incredible voice. I mean, I can't say I listen to her. But when I DJ, people will sometimes request her.
What? They request her? In a
Yeah,
club?
because there's all these dance, you know, there's all these like dance remixes
like
of Celine Dion.
remix or...
Yes, exactly.
So what's your favorite Celine Dion song? I will be judging you based on your answer.
I can't say I have a favorite. Like
you have to have it. Like you have to have one. That
I mean,
like,
do you?
Yes, of course
you
I do. Yes.
Oh,
I think I have two actually.
Oh wow. Okay, I need to know what they are.
No. So you're just saying like point blank. You don't have like a go-to Celine Dion song.
Yeah, I'm not a fan, sadly. Sorry to disappoint.
Well, I'm not a fan either.
As a Canadian.
I can admire some of her work. Think Twice is amazing.
Okay.
You don't know what that is, do you?
I don't know, not by name.
Oh. Okay, and It's All Coming Back to Me Now is ridiculously amazing.
Right.
No, I'm not selling you on any of these. You don't give a shit, do you?
Yeah, no, that's a classic, for sure. That's something I also DJ at weddings sometimes, and that's like a classic, you know, wedding DJ sort of number.
That is a punch this guy. Yeah. Like
yeah.
That's incredible. Anyway, so I'm not going to keep talking about Celine Dion. So Beaver kind of continued to be like your home in terms of Regina.
Yes. So while I was working there, I worked there for 6 years, and then I stopped in end of 2011, 2012. I did this big tour of Europe in the end of 2011, and that was kind of like the final tour. The owners were like, okay, like we need, you know, there was weird management at that point. There was like these weird managers, and they didn't really know me. And anyways, they were like, yeah, you can go on this tour, but like we kind of need someone to do your shifts like consistently. So that was how it ended. But then it like, yeah, I kept performing there, DJing there, hanging out there. Like it stayed in my life for quite a while.
What was your favorite thing about the audiences there?
Well, there were so few places to go like that it brought all the, you know, the fun queer art fags, and it was a very mixed spot. You know, a lot of people think it was a lesbian bar because it was called the Beaver, but it was like very much a queer bar. And it was also, you know, when we would have brunch, it was like families or whoever was going out for brunch. Like it was sort of like all things. And that's very unusual, at least in Toronto. Like, the gay bars that are in the village are gay bars, you know? And then there's like straight bars. There's very few queer bars like that.
And so when you heard about the Beaver closing, what did that stir up for you?
On the one hand, I was not surprised. On the other hand, I figured... So I hadn't really been going there much in the last, like, I don't know, at least 5+ years, doing the odd DJ gig there. So it wasn't a big part of my life anymore, but, but it always was at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So when it closed, yeah, I was not surprised. So the building, the whole like block that the Beaver is on has been sold, right, to a developer. So I knew it was just a matter of time. I think there was like a 5-year thing where it was going to all be torn down. So it was still there, and it was actually doing really well as a bar. But I knew that someday, like I knew the building had actually been sold, but they were just keeping the venue open. So it was sort of just like, oh, this is just happening sooner than we thought it was going to. You know, there was talk of somebody buying it, and there were like these hints of, you know, there were all these like kids doing parties there. So there were all these fun queer parties of young kids. And once in a while they would ask me to DJ. So I sort of did have some like, I was seeing this like new gen thing. And like, and at first it was like, it took me a while to adjust, you know, you're like, oh, who are these, you know, people? And then you're like, oh, right. They're the ones going there now all the time. You know, I don't go there all the time anymore. So, and then they started asking me to DJ the odd time for their parties. And I realized like, oh, they're actually doing like interesting things here. And, you know, it's funny being like older and realizing like, oh, they don't even like a lot of them, most of them don't even know. Like they don't even know Will Munro. They don't even know Hot Nuts. They don't even know like they kind of think they're like the first people to do this or something.
Isn't it like, oh, can we just talk about that quickly?
Yeah.
It's so fascinating. The thing that keeps like making me go like, what's going on is when people talk about like when fully grown adults are like, yeah, I've loved Lady Gaga since I was a kid, and she's been such an inspiration to me, and she's like taught me so much about myself. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like Lady Gaga's been around for like 3 years. What are you talking about? And then like realizing like, oh shit, there are like people who like don't remember a world before Lady Gaga. Just like you don't remember a world before Celine Dion.
Exactly. Or Madonna, like when the kids don't really know Madonna.
Yeah. You just kind of like, how did that escape you? Like, how have you not like seen her?
And that's the thing. If kids don't know Madonna, like they certainly don't know like who the local Toronto queens were from 10 years ago.
Well, I don't see why they shouldn't.
Yeah. I mean, luckily, you know, at least in that scene, those are the kind of people that actually would want to find out about the history, you know? I feel like in the mainstream, like on our church street, like that scene really, really doesn't care about like the history. At least in this scene, like people are more like, you know, at least some of them want to know that kind of stuff.
It is fascinating having that perspective when you are a young person in like thinking that your generation is the one that's like doing all of these things and kind of not recognizing that it's happened and then before that it happened and then before that it happened. And when you kind of get to a point where you're like, oh shit, oh yeah, we're really reductive.
Right. Well, and even me, like, you know, I was not the first drag queen to sing their own music, you know. It certainly wasn't common in Toronto, that's for sure. But I mean, there were many people who have done it before me. But I never pretended like I was the person. I guess that's the difference.
And so then if you think back on what that venue has meant in your life, what did it teach you about yourself?
Gosh, it taught me, it really, like, I really came into myself, I think, via that bar. I mean, I would say that's true of the parties Will was doing before, like Vaseline. I think that's where I started to know the queer alternative scene in Toronto was through Vaseline. And that's where I really came out of my shell as well. And that's around when I joined the Hidden Cameras. And so, you know, but that was a monthly. So that was once a month, right? And it was this huge deal, but it was monthly. And the Beaver was open 7 days a week. So suddenly, you know, there was this, you could do that kind of stuff every day. You could be that person every day. You could, you know, have those parties every night of the week kind of thing.
Do you have any memories of the Beaver or clubbing from your own queer scene that you want to share? Well, if you do, please get in touch. I want to create the biggest online record of people's memories and stories about nightlife. Go to lostspacespodcast.com and find the section Share a Lost Space and tell me all about what you got up to. And if you want to hear more about the Beaver, check out the episodes with Prawn Waters and Casey Messia, which you can find in your podcast player. You can also find me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter as Lost Spaces Pod. Find out more about Regina on Instagram, Twitter, and Twitch. Her user profile is Regina Gently on all three. So convenient. Lost Spaces is not only a podcast, but a concept record as well. I have been writing songs about queer venues and the people who used to live their lives there, and will be releasing songs over the next year. You can hear the first single, Well Groomed Boys, which is also playing underneath my talking right now on all streaming platforms. If you liked this episode, I would really appreciate if you subscribed, left a review on your podcast platform, or just told people who you think might be interested in giving it a little listen too. I am Kay Anderson, and you have been listening to Lost Spaces.